what will be presented to the board as a whole tomorrow night.
Right. Traditionally, we've always brought those presentations to the facility subcommittee before we bring them to the board, just to the extent that we can.
Right. Thank you.
So the idea of this presentation is to provide more background education on general obligation bonds, recognizing the board. We wanted to share that information for purposes of just education, and then also provide more specificity on the items that will be in front of the board tomorrow night as it relates to the 2015 bond, which is the updated preliminary official statement. So just as a quick purpose of overview, general obligation bonds are voter approved, and they're the primary tool used by school districts within California to fund capital facility projects. Now, voters agree to approve tax rates and an authorization amount, and those tax rates are attached to the annual property taxes as an ad valorem tax. Ad valorem meaning percentage of the assessed value, which is why we're always referring to tax rates as a dollar amount per $100,000 of assessed value. Now, laws govern what school districts can issue and by what amounts, both from a tax rate standpoint and a bonding capacity standpoint, which we'll get into shortly. And oftentimes, these laws which govern school districts' ability to issue bonds changes over time, such as the 2000 Proposition 39 in adjusting the voter approval and the associated parameters of projects, designation, and so on and so forth, and also Assembly Bill 182, which was more recent, 2013, which governs the ability of how bond sales can be structured and the use of capital appreciation bonds. Participants as it relates to a new money bond transaction starts with the Board of Education in setting policies, approving the financing plan and the financing documents. You have district staff, which manages the overall planning and execution, provides information as it relates to the facility needs, and also for disclosure purposes. The financial advisor develops the plan of finance, manages the financing team, and all aspects of the financing pursuant to the district's direction and the board's direction. You have bond counsel, which prepares legal documents and ultimately issues a legal and tax opinion. Disclosure counsel, which provides the disclosure obligations, which is ultimately presented to investors in the form of the preliminary official statement and the official statement. You have underwriters. In the case of a negotiated sale, they'll assist with the structuring of the financing, and their main piece, as Ms. Gamba alluded to earlier, is focused on investor outreach and drawing a certain level of attention and interest on the upcoming bond sale to be successful when going out to market. You also have some external participants, which include rating agencies, which evaluate the credit quality of the issuer and assign ratings which investors use to weigh their purchasing decisions on what bonds they want and what bonds they don't want. You have the county assessor, which determines the annual assessed valuation. You also have the county auditor controller, calculates the tax rates. And you have bond investors, both retail and institutional, which ultimately purchase bonds. Now, just looking at the district's bond authorizations, there's been 6 since dating back to 1998, approving over $1.6 billion. You can see here a strong level of support across all of those measures. And then on this next page, we're looking at the total dollars remaining of authorized but unused, tallying to $592 million for 2005, Measure J, 2010, Measure D, and 2012, Measure E. And then We also want to look at the tax rates for all of the measures. I had alluded to earlier, there's really two tax rate maximums. There's a statutory maximum, which you go back to the 1998 and the 2000 measures. Because those were not Proposition 39 bonds, there is no statutory maximum. So all there is the designated ballot maximum, which you can see for the 98 measure was $26.40, and 2000 measure M was $55.60. The later bond measures do have the statutory cap at $60, and you can see the 2002 and 2005 measures were aligned to the $60 statutory cap, whereas 2010 and 2012 were designated to have a lower $48 cap. We already looked at this slide and the other presentation, so unless there was any questions, I'll move past it.
I have a question about the previous slide.
Sure.
Why for measure D and E was the $48 maximum identified?
There's a lot that goes into it. I would say that primarily given the fact that there had been other requests from the district to its voters within the community to approve bonds, that maybe a lower tax rate was more desirable. It's also driven based on the total need and the total authorization amount. So a balance of those two things were the drivers of the lower tax rate.
Thank you.
And then we actually already looked at this slide as well, which covers the baseline scenario, $48 tax rate and 4%. And I do apologize for the duplication. It's more so a function of the fact that we're bringing this information to the board as a whole tomorrow night, so I do apologize. One piece of information that we did not cover was on the bonding capacity waivers. For education code, school districts within California are limited to access a certain percentage of their total assessed valuation. For a unified district, it's 2.5%. There is also provisions within the education code that allows districts to request a waiver for that 2.5% threshold, which West Contra Costa Unified has done in the past in order to take on the responsibility of addressing district-wide the facility needs that exist, and then passing those measures to do so. So in the table here, it shows the 4 waivers that have been requested, 2 of which have since expired. There's 2 active waivers for both the 2 most recent and active measures, which is the 2010 Measure D and 2012 Measure E, both of which have a waiver amount at 5% of assessed valuation, with the 2010 measure going out to 2021 and the 2012 measure going out to December of 2025. Based on those waiver amounts of 5%, the district is able to access, as of 2014-15 assessed values, approximately $400 million. That number is going to increase over time. The bonding capacity calculation is a snapshot as assessed valuations grow and are released by the county. And as principal is paid off each year, that capacity number grows. So, unless there's any questions, that's just a quick overview and education on GO bonds, general issue bonds. Looking at the 2015 bond issuance process, the Board of Education has approved a resolution authorizing $135 million to be issued with this upcoming 2015 financing, and that was brought forward for approval in November 2014. We also, for information purposes, brought the same documents to the board in October of 2014 as an informational item in order to comply with Assembly Bill 182. Now, the resolution that is going to be presented tomorrow night will include approval of an updated version of the preliminary official statement to account for new information that has been released since November when it was last approved by the board, and I'll cover that information here momentarily.